there's a combination of factors here because one, we have the fact that we haven't been really doing anything on YouTube because we've been doing a lot less, despite having way more free time thanks to a big P word. And no, I'm not talking about penis. I'd call it a dick. I'm a man, okay? I think we could say... I don't know if they actually are still demonetizing people for saying the C word. But I could say pandemic. I can say pandemic.
Yeah, you can say pandemic.
I don't know if they were demonetized.
I don't know if we should literally call it by name.
Yeah. So the pandemic, that thing that's happening, that's giving us a ton more free time, objectively.
Yes.
But we haven't really been spending it on YouTube. And I know that we've both been doing very different things, but
yes.
I mean, I think I speak for both of us. It's not all productive. Like a lot of it is like just talking to each other and doing other things and living. I mean, I wish I was spending more time being a little bit more productive on stuff, but I don't want to sell myself short either because I've been working a lot on writing scripts, and I mean like legitimately finally writing fully realized, fully formatted scripts for projects that I want to work on. Because when Gibson gets around to it, he can tell you what his general plans are, which he's not as set in stone as I am at the moment. But I know that I want to be a director, and just I've like I've said before, I love film, and by film I'm not just meaning like movies. I actually, as I've gotten older, I've grown to like I think we were just talking about this like yesterday, that like it's almost like we've starting to think that we like shows more than movies at this point.
Yeah.
But I know that this is a recent development, so it might seem superficial and maybe it's like, oh, maybe it'll be a phase, but I'm really confident because not only have I already had a lot of history with animation, with things like How to Train Your Dragon and Ice Age, which are things I've held up in high regard for a long time. I even love things like Monsters, Inc. and stuff. But when I first started watching anime back in 2017 when I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, or properly watched anime. I technically watched Bakugan Battle Brawlers way back when I was really young.
Yes.
But,
dude, I'm looking at the chest in the corner where I have all my fucking Bakugan in a pile inside.
I don't even know where the fuck mine are anymore, man. They're just gone. Those are some balls from the past, let me tell you.
Balls from the past.
The thing is, even though I like kind of technically got into anime in 2017, and like I kind of got out of it towards the end of 2018. Not that I like wanted to get out of it, but it's just like I was really busy actually with my YouTube channel. Like literally what we were talking about earlier. I think that was probably a huge reason for why I didn't watch more stuff, is because I was so focused on putting all of my goddamn time into really, well, I don't want to say pointless shit, because it was actually, I really value the experiences I got off of YouTube.
I don't regret anything.
Yeah, and I'm glad that I overshot the projects on there, because it helped me realize that these big shows and stuff have like hundreds of people working on them, because you need hundreds of people working on them to do this at a good quality and at a reasonable, manageable level for everyone's sanity and health and for time efficiency. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of that right now, but basically, in summary, in 2020, actually, a game I won't talk about right now, we'll save for some other one, but called Doki Doki Literature Club. I experienced it in the end of May of last year, 2020, and it I love that game so much, and it had a anime-inspired art style, and it revitalized my interest in the genre. And so one of my friends had recommended an anime to me, and I watched that, and then we immediately watched another movie together, and that started the trend which was basically June of 2020 leading to now, which is June of 2021. I have been watching anime nonstop. Like I've been fully into it now.
Full weeb conversion.
I love anime, and I've really, I love animation in general, but anime was the real thing that opened me up to it. And it's not because of the art style, and it's not because of some other things like that or specific series. It's because of the culture. I honestly think that just Japan and the way that they do their what do you call it? Their media is a lot more mature than a lot of Western stuff. The Western stuff, like, while we can be known to be grotesque and like, oh, freedom of speech bullshit, we're kind of tame. If you really think about it, there's a lot of places where we're really soft and we really value like things like, there's children's sections to stuff. Not to say that Japan doesn't have that, not to say that these are bad, but Japan has a not so fine line where, like, in the US, animation is kind of hard to convince people to be an adult subject. Like, it's usually just seen as a kid thing.
Well, like,
and
I see so many, like, memes and stuff about, and so many, like, stories as well, about how, like, people who really like anime will get told that it's for kids and stuff, and I'm like, that's a fucking American as shit thing to assume.
Yeah.
Oh boy, do I have news for you.
Like, Gibson, you watched Bakugan Battle Brawlers as well, right? Back when that came out. But like his proper, like, real first introduction into anime where he actually finished it, because he watched One Punch Man briefly too, I believe, was Evangelion, just like me. And that show alone hard disproves that the animation is for kids.
It really does.
So
look at this fun show about kids fighting in robots. This is gonna be wholesome.
Where's all this yogurt coming from?
Where's all the yogurt coming from?
It's so I think that it was fascinating to me to see that there's a huge, like, as people know, like, anime I think is the single biggest media source in Japan. Like, I like games and movies and shows and stuff, like, none of it like amounts to how huge of an industry anime is. And it's for good reason, because people really like it. And there's a lot of stuff there, and I'm not saying, like, that's one thing, like, every anime fan, I think that's a common misconception, is a lot of people, when they hear an anime fan, if they're not familiar with it, they're like, oh, you just like all that crap like Dragon Ball Z. I don't like Dragon Ball Z. Anime fan, if you're an anime fan, it doesn't mean you like all anime. It just means that you like that like assortment of things, and you sift through that bucket for shit. Like, you're not looking in other buckets.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean that you're like everything.
It's super broad. It's a massive, I was gonna say genre, but it's not a genre, it's just a medium. So it's everything. And
it's technically not even a medium. I'm gonna actually give a shout out to Mother's Basement, I believe is who did it. I'll link, if I remember, I'll link the video in the description. He does an amazing video breaking down what anime really is, and to summarize it, he does a much better job. Please watch his video. It's really great. I really love what he says in it, and I fully agree with his take. But he basically says that anime is a movement, more than anything, because you can't properly define it as a medium, and you can't properly define it as a bunch of other things. It's more of like a movement, because there's even, like, you'll see live action movies and you see a moment, you're like, that's so anime, even though it's not animated at all, right? Like, you there's just certain things, certain tropes, certain styles, certain ways of, like, especially like reducing budget constraints that anime have originally were really creative ways of reducing that strain from the budget. They ended up turning into visual flares that are literally used for style now. And that's so that's kind of like an example of, like, how it's turned into a movement, and it's a much broader thing than just like even a medium. And so, but anyways, I fell in love with that and the potential of it, but the real reason why I've decided that I want to be an animation director, and honestly, you could probably even call me a wannabe anime director, because, like we established, it's more of a movement than anything. I don't have to be in Japan to make anime. And that's because the level of control you have. I'm a super creative person. And I love just deep diving into shit, and we'll get into, like, when we talk about other things, like, we have plans for an entire NGE episode and some other great things that we just love.
Yes.
I love when you, like, you can really dig deep into something and see all the mastery and the art in it. So animation is, like, the perfect outlet for someone with a super creative mind that is also a writer, or a story writer, because it, like, when you have live action, no matter how detailed you are, you can't control every pore on an actor's face. You can't control a lot of things are just like physical constraints. That's one thing a lot of people like to say is like physical constraints. You can't do this and that, but you can achieve that with, you know, CGI and stuff, and you can fill in the gaps and whatnot. I think these are all still legitimate reasons, but the big reason I want to sink in is not like any kind of physical constraints or anything like that, but it's literally just the amount of control that you have. And I'm going to just list one example. One of my favorite shows of all time, Hyouka, and Gibson just recently, he at the beginning of this year started watching it, and we recently got back into watching it, so he's seen a little bit of it. He hasn't finished it, but it's a very grounded show. It has no like ridiculous shit going on. It has like really cool visual flares every once in a while, and by that I mean like literally like a magical like tangling of a girl's hair around a room or something, but it's literally just in the imagination of a boy.
There will be like random visual stuff, especially when they're like telling stories of something that's happened, where it looks like supernatural, but it's literally just visuals. It's just meant to look neat. It's not actually signaling what's happening literally.
Everything in the story is completely grounded. Like, it could translate to live action superbly because of that fact. But
yeah.
Not that I would want it to, because the reason I'm going to list right now is that even though everything's grounded, they don't have the crutch of like, oh, we can do anything we want, and so that story requires it. There's scenes in that show where they design just the infrastructure of the school. It doesn't look out of normal at all. It looks completely normal school infrastructure, but because they can literally design the school by hand, they would frame things and make the shapes and contours of a structure angle and manners to really evoke emotions and emphasize focus, and use all those fancy directorial tricks that screenwriters and directors use in all kinds of productions, live action or animated, to emphasize the story and to tell it correctly. But this story, even though it's super grounded and has no reliance on any of those absurd things, because they're able to literally design every square inch of the space and the area and the characters, it is 100% exactly how you want it. And so just that infinite potential for designing it exactly how you want and not having to worry about anything, having to find locations or anything like that, that's what I find so appealing about it. And so that's
the
why
the coolest thing to me as well is that you have that level of control with animation, and as well, even not that animation is easy to do, that's not what I'm saying, but in terms of the resources you need, whereas for live action, you need like to actually find like the building you're going to shoot at. If you need the craziest thing ever happening in a single frame of animation, doesn't matter what it is, you just need either the piece of paper or computer program, depending on what you're using. You just need
the imagination and the artist. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, it is wonderful because of that.
So yeah, to summarize, what I'm trying to say is that basically I've decided that I want to be an animation director above all. I still have like a couple ideas for live action projects that I'd like to do,